Reading with your kids.
Hey, so great to see you. Come on in. Hi, my name is Jedlie, and this is a special Protecting the Planet with Your Kids episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts, and the northeast corner of North America, part of this beautiful, beautiful planet we all call home. We created this Protecting the Planet with Your Kids series of episodes to give parents the information they need to talk to their kids about climate change without scaring them and also inspire them to take action. Right now, helping me create this wonderful series of episodes is my co-host, Alexia Brown. Hey, Alexia, who do we have on the show today?
We are here today with Evelyn Bookless, author of Captain Green and the Tree Machine. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. How are you today?
Thank you. I'm really good, thank you. The sun is shining here in the Netherlands, so I'm feeling great. Finally, we have some good weather.
Shining here in Boston, too. Good. So you are the author of Captain Green and the Tree Machine. Could you tell us a little bit about the book?
I can indeed. This book just released here in Europe a couple of weeks ago, but came out in the States in January. And it's the second book in the Captain Green series of picture books. And this one focuses on deforestation. So the first book, I was interviewed by your brilliant podcast when it came out, Captain Green and the Plastic Scene. And it focuses on plastic pollution. And in this story, our superhero is a little bit more sophisticated. He understands a little bit more about being a superhero. But at the beginning of the story, he's deciding that he must have a superhero invention to help him protect the planet, but he doesn't really know what he's going to use it for. And as he's thinking about that, he gets called up on a whole new mission to the rainforests. And it's not set in the book, but it is based around the areas of Borneo, in Indonesia, and all of the animals featured are native to there. So we have a hornbill who's in trouble because its tree has been chopped down, and then we meet an elephant, and an orangutan. So they're all animals that are in very real danger, unfortunately, due to deforestation. And Captain Green decides that he must go off and use his tree machine to help them. So he gets his invention and he turns it into a tree machine. And he's delighted with himself that he's going to be able to solve this problem. And he starts firing out trees, and he's thrilled that he's going to be able to fix the forest really, really quickly. But unfortunately, his enthusiasm ends in disaster, and his tree machine explodes, and he doesn't know what he's going to do. And as he flies off to go back to his home, he sees some children very simply planting a tree. And that gives him the idea that he should reach out to others. And he goes to their school and he asks for help. And they say, oh, we know all about planting trees. And they all work together. And he realizes that, with many hands, we can fix this problem, but it might just take a little bit of time. And he flies off to spread the message. So I hope that it's quite a light-hearted look at deforestation. It's still, there's a lot of fun and superhero language in there to engage children. And I know teachers have been using the book as a way into this topic. And at the back, there's some back matter featuring, the facts about deforestation and some practical ways children can help.
Wow. This is really fun. I'm curious because I've had the opportunity to visit 3 different rainforests in different parts of the world, and they're amazing places. And when you're there and you have an opportunity to go up in the canopy, and then you look out, and all you see for miles and miles and miles are trees and green, and it's beautiful. And it's hard to believe that there's a problem with deforestation. How severe is this problem?
Well, it's quite frightening, really. Just looking at Borneo itself, they say that 30% of the rainforest has been destroyed in the last 40 years for timber, palm oil production. Sometimes the land is cleared to use it for something else, like growing palm oil trees. Sometimes it's cleared for mining because they want to get at minerals in the ground and other things. But yeah, around the world, it's alarming the rate with which we're losing our valuable rainforests. And not only, of course, do trees clean the air, they also provide homes to so many species. I mean, 50% of the world's plants and animals actually live in rainforests. And, you know, scientists are always discovering whole new species they didn't know existed in the rainforest. So, yeah, their homes are just being lost, their food sources. And, of course, it's affecting the heat of the planet because, of course, trees help to keep the air cooler. There's just so many benefits to trees, and we are losing them at a great rate, unfortunately.
Yeah, so you said that this book in particular was based off of a specific rainforest. Did you visit that rainforest and get inspired to write the book about that?
I did. So I lived in Asia for 10 years, in Hong Kong and in Singapore. So, you know, I was in a great location for traveling all over the region. And I visited Indonesia many times, and it's a beautiful country and there's loads of gorgeous islands. I visited Borneo, where the story takes place. It's not said that the story takes place in Borneo. It could be in many rainforests, but based on the animals that are featured, it's, you know, obvious. But yes, I visited and I had seen, large areas of palm oil plantations and had learned from that visit that used to be land that was full of ancient rainforests. So I have seen it with my own eyes. And I've also seen the beautiful rainforests that are intact as well. So it was a very real experience for me. You know, similarly, when I wrote the other book, I just saw enormous amounts of plastic pollution. I mean, that was before it even became this big topic that we're all more aware of. And, you know, maybe living in Asia, sometimes in parts of it, you can just see it more with your own eyes. And unfortunately now, of course, the plastic problem we see in many oceans and around the world. But yes, I have seen, the deforestation where it's happened. But you know, these countries are so beautiful and you do still see lots of trees. But when you learn about the statistics and you realize how frightening it is, how much has disappeared. And when you learn about the animals and see, you know, so many of them are endangered that were not, you know, 10, 20, 30 years ago.
One of you're talking about different species living. One of the things that really amazed me when I visited the rainforest is that, yeah, you have these trees, and the trees are home to all sorts of insects and birds and monkeys and different mammals. But there are also a lot of plants that are growing out of the tree. They're growing along the trunk of the trees, and that really freaked me out.
Yeah, it's just so beautiful. And of course, lots of medicines are derived from rainforests as well. You know, we've learned so much about healthcare and, you know, ingredients come from some of these plants. So they're vitally important to us. And of course also, you know, just keeping the water cycle going. You know, there's a whole water cycle that happens in rainforests. And when we clear them, the countries that have cleared a lot, like I know, for example, in Malawi in Africa, they've lost a lot of forest. And as a result, they're experiencing great drought, especially in the warmer times of year. So, you know, the effects on humanity are enormous, you know. And of course, the air not being as clean anymore and the climate getting warmer. So there's a lot of reasons to want to help. And there is a lot of positive ways that I always try to talk to children about ways they can help. Because sometimes I think children feel maybe like they don't know enough about it or they need an adult. But I find in the work I do when I visit schools is that children are the ones who really care and really want to make a difference. We just need to help them a little bit to do that.
Yeah, I was going to say a lot of kind of what you've been talking about and what you hear in the news and everything like that, it can sound really scary and really out there and kind of like you're helpless in that circumstance. And so I know a lot of people kind of feel nervous to talk to their kids about it and introduce their children to the realness and seriousness of these issues, which is why books like yours are so great. So do you have any tips on how parents can kind of go about discussing with their kids climate change?
Absolutely. And, you know, I've had nice feedback from teachers and librarians to say that they've found these books quite a kind of gentle way of introducing the topic, and they're not alarming or not, the children come away with a positive message of hope. And I often quote in school visits Jane Goodall, who says children can change the world. And I love to empower children to believe that. But ways that can help, very real ways that can help. I really didn't want to put anything in the back of the book that was not something a child could do or was just completely out of the realms of possibility. So, children love to draw. They love using paper. But, my own son would love to take a whole wad of printing paper and, draw one little thing on each page and go to a new page. So, it's about teaching children in classes and at home to use both sides of the paper. Make sure you have a recycling bin in your home and in your school. It's amazing how many classrooms still don't even recycle the paper they use. Some countries are better at recycling than others, of course. Buying recycled paper to begin with, and nowadays, especially with the lockdowns, we all tend to maybe have a few more deliveries coming to our homes. And I'm very conscious of all that cardboard, and making sure it's recycled at least or reused is something very real that children can get involved with, and being a little bit less wasteful. Another tip actually that's quite one you wouldn't believe is connected is just eating a bit less meat. Of course, some people are already vegetarian or vegan, but you don't have to be to make a difference. And, I talk about how in my family, we try to have a vegetarian meal once or twice a week for dinner. And just inspire children to not see that as missing out. And that by doing that, we're actually not needing as much land to be cleared for farming. So trees are often cut down to make farmland. And children find that fascinating. I mean, they don't often think about where their food comes from anyway, sometimes. And yeah, if we eat less meat, we use less water as well. And there's a lot of obvious health benefits and environmental benefits to just cutting back a bit. And I also talked to them about not wasting food. There was a big push when I did live in Singapore for cutting down on food waste in that country. And it's a problem around the world, especially when people go out to restaurants, they often over order. And, just encouraging people to maybe order what you need for now and you can get something else, or even cooking at home, using up all what you have and just being mindful of reducing a little bit, because it does, with the enormous population of our planet, if everyone is just a little bit less wasteful, it will have an impact. And another very easy one to get your head around is, of course, getting involved in tree planting. So, if you're lucky enough to have a garden or a terrace or something, depending on how people live, you can plant a tree of your own. I encourage children to maybe think about planting one and measure themselves growing alongside it. Obviously they take years to mature, but you can also get involved. We can all get involved in tree planting projects. Different countries, towns, cities, or organizations run them where you can come along and help. Or schools can raise money. They can join together and have a bake sale, raise money and donate it to an organization. And there are so many. I was lucky enough that this book was nicely written about by a few tree organizations, and one of them is an American organization called One Tree Planted. And I love their website for schools and families because they have information for children and lesson plans that schools can sign up to, and they have challenges where you can donate money to help plant certain numbers of trees. So, a quick search on the internet, people can find real ways, families and children, that they can get involved in planting trees if they can't do it around their own home. Maybe community gardens and spaces as well. So there's a lot happening. I feel it's a topic that a little bit like plastic pollution 5 or 6 years ago is really coming to the fore now. We're really kind of getting behind it more.
I love that idea of encouraging kids to plant trees and helping them understand that it's going to take a long time for this tree to grow. And we had a beautiful oak tree in our backyard that was so wonderful. There was a tree swing on it, and we would tie the hammock to the oak tree, and this tree provided so much joy for us, and it was planted probably 100 or more years ago. And I imagine, I don't know, but I imagine helping kids imagine that, hey, we're not going to be able to enjoy this tree like that, but but there's going to be a family 75 years from now, 50 years from now, that are going to be sitting underneath the tree that you planted, reading a book together. I think that that's something really cool that our kids can kind of wrap their heads around.
Absolutely. That's a lovely idea. And, there's something to me so special about trees and so magical. And I grew up on a farm in the west of Ireland where we had lots of trees around the back, and we played in them all the time and got dirty and didn't come in until it was dinner time. And it was the good old days, where no one really cared what you were doing as long as you were coming when it was time to eat. But also I was in a very unusual position in that my dad planted a whole forest, actually. And that's another thing that drew me to this, wanting to write a story about trees. 20 or 30, it must have been 30 years ago, he got this idea that he was going to plant a forest because we have the land and he wasn't using this land for anything. And there was a government project behind it where they, put some money towards it as well. And I encouraged a lot of people to do this. But we now have this mature forest that I go and visit with my family when I'm in Ireland. It's beautiful, and it's grown up in my lifetime because it's the type of trees that grow that bit faster. There's pine trees and all sorts of things in there. There's a lot of connection to trees for me. It's something, and I think a lot of people feel that way. There's just something so special and magical about them. And I've learned more about them, that even underneath the trees, there's a whole world going on, that trees talk to each other through their roots and they communicate, which really is incredible. There's some picture book about that now, I believe. I'm not sure. I have to find out. I could be making that up. Okay.
Yeah, I think also just building that sense of community within like planting trees and things like that can be so cool for kids. Just connecting with people, over protecting the planet, feeling like it's a group effort. That can be really empowering. I know I live in Boston, and obviously it's really hard for me to go outside and just plant a tree, because it's really hard to find the land, first of all, and then it's really hard for trees to find the strength to grow in these kind of environments. But I know personally, because trees are a huge passion of mine, there are so many organizations and things like that, just a Google away, that are planting trees and making an effort to put more green spaces in the city and help those baby trees survive those couple of first years where they're really vulnerable. And it's been an excellent source of community for me as well.
Lovely. That's great. Really nice to hear. And like you say, the community coming together aspect of anything is wonderful and badly needed when life returns to normal again and we can all be around each other.
Oh my gosh, yes. Once coronavirus gets under control, we can all have a tree planting party.
That sounds like a great plan.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful to help kids see themselves like Captain Green or like Johnny Appleseed, just going out and planting all these trees and really changing the world.
Yeah, that's absolutely. And they do, and that's one of the reasons I put the superhero in the story, because it's a way to have children even more excited, and when I sometimes visit schools, one craft that I've done is they make Captain Green's superhero watch out of recycled cardboard, like empty kitchen roll or toilet paper tubes, and they have a blast. And afterwards, they're going around the classroom with their little watch, pretending to be Captain Green, and anything to make it more exciting and a way in to caring. And I love watching their faces when you get to the really sad moment in the story when all the animals are saved, but they look really worried. There's a beautiful spread by Danny Deeptown, the illustrator, who lives in England and is an incredible artist. And the animals just have the saddest little expressions, and they're worried, and Captain Green, is trying to come up with a plan. But to watch the children's expressions of genuine care, because children really do love animals as well. I'd like to think we all do. But this is the page I'm talking about. I know your listeners can't see it, but it's one of my favorites. And children just have this passion and care, and we need them to, because we need to build a better future for them and their children by making changes now.
The spread that Evelyn just shared with us is a beautiful spread of an elephant in the forest, and those are two of my favorite things, elephants and trees. And I think kids really love those two things because they're so big, but they seem, like they're so huggable. Just like I'd love to hug an elephant. I love to hug trees.
Yeah, well, that's it. You sound like a tree hugger. You're on the right team. Very good.
Yeah, to get kids out in nature and hugging trees. I know you are a well-traveled person yourself, and I think personally that any opportunity to travel, whether it's 30 minutes from your home or get on a plane and go somewhere new, when it's safe, of course, but that can really help foster a kid's creativity of the world around them, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I'm all for children traveling, seeing the world, and it breeds tolerance as well, which is wonderful. I mean, my son was born in Hong Kong, lived in Singapore, and I just see the benefits of that enormously, and just very accepting of people no matter where they're from or what they look like. And that's a very important thing for me to instill in him.
Yeah. That's really beautiful. I love one of the things that you've said a number of times throughout the show is this idea of recycling and using less, doing little things to make big changes. I think one of the things that we can do as families and as parents is just to help kids understand that piece of paper that you're drawing on was created by a tree. I remember the first time someone explained to me that paper came from trees. I'm like, how does that work? This is all flimsy but wood is like strong, and how does it go from that to this? And it seemed like magic to me.
Yeah, that is. And sometimes you just need to tell children that because they may not realize that we're, using up a resource of our planet, and we do need to just be more mindful, grown-ups and children, of what we use, what we buy. I'm very much, I've changed my mindset a lot. I don't like filling my home full of stuff because the stuff you have starts to own you. I mean, I have plenty of stuff, but, before I bring something else into my home, I sometimes, do I really need this? Do I want this? Do I want to be watching it collect dust? And just all those little things, we can become such a throwaway society of buy, I must have this, I must have that. But, I tried to be that bit more conscious of where it's come from and how much I really need it before I start stuffing it into my house. Just being very mindful of waste and what do we really need? Because everything has to come from our resources, and we have a finite number of resources, whether it's water or paper, pulp to make paper or whatever it is, we can't just keep consuming, and there's been a bigger push towards circular economies where things kind of get moved around more and used by other people, and just thinking about the whole cycle of when something is produced and what's going to happen to the waste, and companies needing to be more responsible for the waste that they produce, So there's more pressure, I believe, on corporations as well and what they produce to be a bit less wasteful, but there's plenty of room for improvement.
Definitely. I noticed earlier when you were talking about some of the crafts and things like that you do in classrooms, you often use recycled materials to kind of do your crafts, which is awesome. There are so many ways that you can reuse things that you use once and then use it again for a whole new activity, which is really cool.
Absolutely. And, it's something that happens oftentimes anyway in the younger years of schools. I find there's a lot of making, and certainly in school, because I'm a primary school teacher and elementary school teacher, although I work part-time at that at the moment. And you'll often see in the younger year groups the children bringing in boxes and bottles from home, and they'll have junk modeling is what we tend to call it in the British curriculum. So I don't know if that happens so much in American schools. I'm sure it does. And they just love, bringing home all the bits and bobs they've made. But yeah, I do try to, in any of the crafts I put up on my website, to have that element of get something that's already in existence to make this. And that's, again, it's important to me and to being more environmentally friendly.
So what are your favorite activities that you have families or kids do to get excited?
It often depends on the age of the child. When I visit younger classes where children might be 4 or 5 years old, and if I was reading my book, the Plastic Scene book, we often make Captain Green's watch. That's a huge favorite, and it's quick and easy to make. The instructions are on my website. Older children, we tend to do, there's a pledge on my website they can make of the little changes they're going to make. Again, very real, easy to accomplish things. And then for my new book, I've put an activity up where they make a picture of the Borneo elephant that's in the story. It's called the Pygmy Elephant, in fact, and it's the smallest breed of Asian elephant. And they can make a picture using handprints. And I love when children just get messy and use their bodies to create. Using their hand, they make an elephant, and they make a lovely tree scene using the fingerprints for the leaves. And again, I often say to children, you can make the picture and you can stick it up around your classroom or at home to raise awareness of this problem. And you can tell people this breed of elephant is endangered and it comes from Borneo. And so I do like having art activities or crafts around a story. And again, just is another way for children to learn and get involved and get messy. There's a few on my website.
I love that idea of doing crafts because it takes a while. It's very physical. So you're getting different parts. Not only your brain is active, but your body is active. And it's a great way to have a conversation. And instead of just saying to your kids, go make this, if you're doing it together and you're getting messy with the kids together, it's a great way to have a very casual, almost sneaky conversation with kids about conservation. You're not sitting down having a lecture to them. You're not telling them you must not use, you must recycle. It's you're actually doing it, and that bond, the same kind of bond you get when you're sitting down snuggled with your kids reading a picture book. You get that same kind of bond and get those endorphins running between you and your kids when you're sitting down making a messy elephant mural with your fingers and your handprints.
Totally, absolutely. And again, having that undisturbed time where no one's on their phone or in front of a screen or the TV's on, it's that time together, and giving children that time is what they really need more than anything. And like you say, it's a great way you can talk, all sorts of topics can come up when you're kind of doing that thing where you're distracted with your body, but you're feeling free and open to talk about other things, including conservation. I totally agree. And I remember this lovely quote another author said at a book talk once, which was, reading with your children is the greatest act of love. Taking that time to spend reading them a story is one of the most loving things you can do with a child. And I thought, wow, I hadn't thought about it quite that way. And for me, I adore sitting down reading a book with my son in the evening, but I might be slightly biased being a teacher and an author. But yeah, it's lovely times.
It really is. Hey, Alexia, I don't know about you, but I think we should probably ask Evelyn to tell everybody where her website is so they can find those great activities.
Absolutely. Yes.
Well, it's very easy. It's my name, www.evelynbookless.com. So sure, even if you Google that with bad spellings, you should be able to find it.
Well, Evelyn, this has been awesome. I really love speaking to you about Captain Green and the Tree Machine and talking about the rainforest and all these different really fun activities we can do with our kids.
Thank you. Likewise. So lovely talking to like-minded people about a topic that means a lot to everybody, really.
Yes, I hope everyone got inspired to go look up some facts about deforestation and start getting involved in their communities and talking about it with friends and families and all of the things that we talked about today.
Lovely. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Thank you very much for being with us, Evelyn.
Bye-bye.
Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Sherry Barch. She'll be here to celebrate Heaven's Bell, a Reading with Your Kids certified great read. Want to thank the folks who make today's show so wonderful. Of course, want to thank our guest, Evelyn Bookless. I want to thank my team, Alejandro Doherty, Fatima Khan, my co-host, Alexia Brown. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you for taking the time to listen to us today. And, of course, thank you for taking the time to read with your kids and protect the planet with your kids. We so appreciate it. I'll be looking for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.